Okay, so we'll call to order the planning committee portion of the meeting as well. And we'll start with the presentation on the SIU contract. Correct? Is that where we are?
That's right.
Okay. Presentations and action.
That's right.
Good morning, everyone. James Bradford, Chief Operating Officer.
Morning.
And I'm excited and thrilled to be being able to present this particular topic here. And just so we all know where we are, I'm going to be taking us through the SEIU labor agreement. For the Finance Committee members, that's going to be found on pages 25 to 27 of your packets there, and section 8A if you have a Planning Committee packet. It's going to be pages 2 through 4, actually 2A. So very, very pleased. You know, I think we like to say mission accomplished. We had 83% of our union members vote yes on the contract and approval for it. We all worked very hard on this, including you, and I thank the committee members and the board members at our December closed session, giving us very good direction on what you would like to see in this new contract and where we kind of go in the future. We heard SEIU's demands. We heard Chief of Staff Rick Smith of SEIU back in a fall board meeting. He attended the board meeting, and he made it clear what his agenda was going to be on behalf of the union members going into these negotiations, including demands for better wages, especially amongst the junior employees. I would just like to take a moment to thank the negotiating team. Very pleased. I'm always thankful for Alan Zimmett's guidance and our counsel, and I'm much appreciative to him. We had our directors, Jeff Thompson, Director of Transportation, and Henry Kasich, Director of Maintenance, also rounding out the team. So we reached a deal, and we reached term on a 3-year contract agreement, and I am pleased to announce, and I say this with my boss right here to my left, and I'm sitting across from the CFO, that we were able to do good things within PSTA's budget. So we were able to really increase the wages, make them more competitive, and increase our top step. But we did so inside of our 3-year projected budget, and we're very proud of that. So on Monday, March 7th, PSTA's largest group of represented employees that account for nearly the bus operators, the maintenance personnel, the customer service representatives, all came together and they voted 274 to 56 in favor of a labor agreement that will carry PSTA through FY 2018. We started November 3rd. We had 11 productive all-day sessions going back and forth. We had over 40 different proposals on the table, which we finally reached agreement on. The tone throughout the negotiations, and I'm pleased to say, was a respectful one. It was very earnest. We worked to achieve progress and continue to foster a workforce culture of transparency and trust, culture of us as in all of us, and not just us versus them. And that's something we've really seen a change. As you know, we underwent a change in unions back last August, where SEIU took over for TBATWU, as we called them, Tampa Bay Area Transit Workers Union. So SEIU's really come in. I've had the chance now with a 3.5-year relationship with Rick Smith. This is my second negotiations with him. We have a great relationship. Our whole thing going in was changing the culture, fostering an environment of trust. We're still working on that. You know, we still have a few. You know, we have nearly 500 folks in my operations department, so you still have a few folks that kind of will look at you and say, you know, you've given me everything, Mr. Bradford, you're being transparent. But we're working on it day by day, and I have to give credit to Rick Smith and SEIU. They've really done that. So if you're following along with me on finance packets, there's a handout on page 4, and if you're planning committee, on page 27, your planning committee packet on page 4, I'm just going to go through the bottom half to highlight some of the things. Starting wages and wage graduation steps have dramatically increased, making PSTA a very competitive first-choice employee, we believe, in Pinellas County and Tampa Bay. PSTA operators will have and continue to have the highest operator wages when compared to other public transit agencies in Central and North Florida. This is your Gainesville, your Daytona, your Jacksonville, your Orlando, even our sister property across the bay, Hardin, Tampa. So we are pleased to be able to continue that for our bus operators who work very hard out there every day. Some of the other key contract points, and we'll get into the fiscal impacts, let me talk a little bit about that. Increased pay for all the positions under the top rate, so the junior operators, some of the other junior positions, a facility cleaner, a mechanic, a master mechanic, customer service rep, a lot of hosts of those positions in years 1 through 4. We did a great job in getting an increase of nearly, or an average of $1 an hour better that we were able to do. Starting bus operator rate is now $12.50. We increased the training rate. If you were coming in here training as a bus operator, you were getting $10 an hour. Now you'll be getting $12 an hour. After about 12 months, operators will be over $13 an hour. The annual wage increases to our top steps, and previously, your top step would be after 60 months, you make the top rate of pay. Those increases will be 2.5% increase, which will be effective pending the board approval. This upcoming March 30th board meeting, and that will be effective with the first pay period in March, which will start March 6th. Another 3% increase for FY17, which actually is 6 months from now, on October 1st, 2016, and then the third year will be an additional 3% increase for FY18, which starts October 1st in 2017. In lieu of a retro pay, and a lot of times these contracts go beyond the expiration date, no matter how far they go, usually the union will seek to say, okay, these are our raises, now you're going to pay us back to when the new contract should have started. Well, it was very costly because we just got this done into February. They also understood that we used part of what would have been that back pay to kind of offer them a nice deal in terms of what their annual percent increase will be. So we had a very innovative approach both sides came up with to this, and in lieu of a retro pay, we've come up with a one-time $300 stored balance for all the collective bargaining employees to draw down, and it goes towards their health insurance contributions. So how that works is this. If I'm a collective bargaining employee, I have roughly 26 paychecks a year. I look under the health section where my contribution is, and if I'm a single, and the majority of the company is, I'm $11.10 goes out my paycheck. Now with this $300 one-time stored bonus balance, they won't see that come out their paychecks until we draw down on it. So the union like that. We'll cover that until the balance is zero, and then those contributions, the health medical contributions, will start again in their paychecks. Another innovative idea, and we're one of the few transit agencies in the nation that really offer and reward for performance. We're pleased to be able to say we are going to be able to continue the annual lump sum compensation program, and it's an opportunity for operators and other collective bargaining employees to be eligible to earn an additional $500 each year for attendance. And that's if you work 500 hours each quarter or 2,000 hours a year, you'll be eligible to get the $500. It's very important for us. Attendance, we do see absenteeism problems. The way that affects us is overtime that's spent by us to try to cover positions when people are out. Rick Smith and the union made a point of saying, hey, listen, let's have a committee to figure out why folks are absent. You do have a small portion that struggle to even work 40 hours or 40 weeks during the year. So if we can improve that and get people coming to work, we can drive down our overtime costs. We can also relieve some of the faithful folks that show up on their days off to work these open shifts, give them a break, give them a breather. That way we have a less fatigued workforce, and we have more rested body and less stressful people out there on the roads. Finally, I just want to point out health and wellness impacts. We come up with several committees that the union and management will be together. We'll have joint committees to further our progress, and we'll give attention to any matters or issues that come up. But one I want to point out is the Health and Wellness Committee. That will be jointly staffed with union reps and management reps or other reps from the PSTA admin side. And we're going to look to identify areas of improvement in regards to our employees' health, in regards to health awareness and prevention. So that's a real good one that both sides will unify on and address. We'll get together with Larry Longnecker, and I apologize. Larry Longnecker was a part of our negotiating committee as well, and I thank him for his guidance and his counsel. But we'll get together with Larry and HR's team each year with our health broker and also the union, and we'll look at what we can do different. We have a state-of-the-art gym facility over the operations building that we've encouraged folks to go to, and during popular times of the day, it's packed in there. We're also going to look at other prevention ideas. also prescription management, what have you. So that's one good thing that we're excited about. So with that, I'm going to be quiet and step out of the way here, and I really want to open it up if anyone has any questions for me.
Thanks, James. Great presentation. Questions? Mr. Evers?
Yeah, you talked an awful lot about the improvements in the budget or in this contract, and you may have touched on it a little bit, but
Sure.
From a benchmarking standpoint and comparing to other organizations out there in the state and also in that benchmarking group that we look at, how are our employees doing? Are they above? Are they on the average? Or are they below? Just trying to get a relative sense to what we're doing in this contract as it relates to
Sure.
benchmark.
I think we could look at that several different ways. In terms of wages and compensation, I think we're one of the top in the states. The exception of Broward County and Miami. In terms of performance, I think we knew we had a ways to go in terms of tightening up some of the general rules. For example, our allowances for how many times you could be excused from work or have unexcused absences was very high. 11 occurrences during the year, 4 accidents, 4 preventable accidents, and you're still working here without any real system of accountability. So from that standpoint, I think we had some work to do to catch up with some of the other agencies. I think in terms of general work rules, I think we're about the same as everyone else. I actually asked my staff to pull the contracts and the rules from the other transit agencies in Florida, just to kind of see how we compare. And I think we're right up there.
And maybe we can just in some summaries.
Sure.
How do we compare with Hillsborough, Pasco, and the counties that are around us, where some of our drivers or our employees could potentially go work? So if we could get, I just like to have some.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't mean today, but just get some information on that immediate area. Okay. The dollars that you're talking about here, since it says $300 for health insurance contributions, what's the total dollars there? And same with the 500. But what are the dollars that we're talking about, and where's that extra money coming from for those two programs? Obviously not. I'm assuming it wasn't factored into our budget. But where's that money coming from?
Sure. I think, and Deb, you may be able to answer that a little bit better than I.
Well, actually, it's all within our budget for the next 3 years. So it's how you balance it out and where we've moved money to. James and the union did a great job of evening out the steps as they progress through, which kind of help things. We've taken a look at what we're actually spending on bonuses. We took a look at all sorts of things, and we were able to come in right at budget, being able to improve things just by looking at it differently.
So you don't see any reserve needs for that wage package because of the changes?
No, not at all.
Redistribution.
And the stored balance was actually within, I think we set aside, and we're looking at 3% for the employees over the next 3 years. So we're able to accomplish that within the budget, and I believe the lump sum compensation, we had that kind of budget.
We did.
I mean, that's one thing too, that not everybody earns it, so you actually may see us not drawing down on that complete amount too that we set aside each year as well.
Yeah, and finally, just say that I'm not looking to necessarily be the highest paid in the state or anything else, but I do think that be competitive is important, and be competitive, especially in the area where our employees can actually go get work is important. So I would like to see that information. But
absolutely. Thank you.
Let me ask a question before we go on. Brad, is this a action item for finance performance management today?
Yes.
Voting on
It's
this?
an action for the finance committee to consider recommending this to the board.
Okay. Chair Barford.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations to James and your team for getting this done. And also, I want to compliment our associates in the union side for being very effective in working through the process of getting a more amicable relationship and more amicable agreement than what we've had in the past. So I think that's terrific, and I'd like to congratulate everybody on your team that helped with that. And so, do we have other comments or questions? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. James, could you go over the details again on the attendance-based lump sum bonus of what the policy was versus what it's going to be now? And
Sure.
also on the safety side, on the accident side, you said it was 4 accidents, you can still work here. What have been the changes to the rules?
Sure,
on this?
absolutely. So starting with the lump sum compensation, previously it was a combination of group offenses and attendance. So it was split. So it was, if you had a couple of group offenses which were a violation of general rules, it could be a traffic violation or a rude to a customer or something like that. There was a percent of money that you could get. I think it was $750. It was about, I forget what it was each quarter.
It was distributed quarterly, and so if you just did nothing wrong, if you didn't have any discipline, you got some money. So this is less, is 500, but this is all at one time. The union actually wanted it because it looks better to be all at once than quarterly, and but it's a little bit tougher because it's all or nothing. It's not just on the discipline, but it's on it's more rigorous attendance criteria.
Because that's where we were having an issue with the attendance.
Yes. And so, and one of the things the union was vocal about was, and they came right off the bat, they said, we want you to get rid of the annual performance lump sum because we don't think it's moving the needle. Now, of course, there was a few representatives in the room speaking for the larger group, and we stood our ground and we said, well, we do believe it does have an impact. And we've spoken to people and we've seen where folks do like to achieve perfect attendance, and they're proud of the fact that they have no complaints during the year. So before it was like $125 for attendance, $75 if you didn't have any group offenses. Now it's just all attendance we're going to be looking at. So if you can achieve 500 hours in a quarter, then you'll be eligible.
And just to clarify, the union did not ask us to get rid of it. They asked us to take the 500 and not make it on merit, but just give it to them as a pay increase automatically. So it wasn't just zero it out. We would have maybe done that. But
on the accident side, we had what they called mirror preventable accidents, and then 4 preventable accidents. And up at that time, it was if you got into 4 preventable accidents over the course of the year, you may be up for discharge. We did try to bring that number down to 3. The union kind of held steady, so we ended up making some other concessions. So what came out of that is we formed an accident. We will be forming an accident committee to review every single collision, every single accident. We've gotten tougher on when you have to go to a defensive driving course after a preventable accident. Each time getting together with safety and training, and we've done away with the idea that there's a separate list of progressive discipline for mirror accidents. So now, if you rip off a mirror, it's an accident. It was so kind of watered down that there were all different types of things you could hit, whether a fixed object, a branch, a curb, a mirror, and you're just drawing down off a certain list. So now we're really a little bit more firmer on, if we believe you could have prevented, if you could have been safer, you could have taken your time and entered intersections and scanned the intersections. We're being a little bit tougher in calling what we call an accident. So the union was agreeable to that. They didn't want to go down to 3 because they thought that operators who got 1 or 2 would just be driving stressed out and in fear of their job. And that's not what we want to do. We just want to take progressive action. We want to take corrective action and make sure that if people are hitting things out there, that we're able to bring them in off the road, retrain them, make sure they have the tools they need to succeed, and put them back out there. So the accident committee will be staffed with union members and folks from PSTA administration side. Each month we'll go over each accident. Our safety and training team will continue to grade each accident, preventable, non-preventable, or no grade, meaning there's not enough information to really make a determination one way or the other. And then the employee can choose to have it go to the committee to see if the committee decides to uphold it or not.
So 4 in my opinion is pretty high. If you have 4 preventables in a year, that's
Yes.
a lot. So does that reset every year? So you get 4 freebies a year essentially?
Right, so it'll fall off every year. So from the point of when you first got your preventable accident, and attendance works the same way. After a year, it doesn't fall off your record, but it won't count towards progressive corrective action. And that's the way it is right now. Now, the one thing I can tell you that's new in this contract is previously group offenses and the accident rules and all these general rules that we believe the management has a right to make adjustments as needed so that we have optimal performance out there was in the contract. So if we wanted to look at the accidents or change a group offense or adjust it, you'd have to go wait 3 years for the contract to negotiate it. We've taken that out of the contract. So now it's just your basic rules. What is jury duty? What is military leave? What's your pay rate? The group offenses, accidents, safety and training, all that's going to be in the general handbook. And if we want to take a look at it and make adjustments during a non-contract a year, then we'll get together with the union and we'll do it. So that's something I think we're encouraged by.
So what happens with accident number 5?
Accident number 5, after accident number 4, you're recommended for discharge.
Okay.
And we do look at each accident. We look at the degree of negligence, how severe the accident is, and then the ultimate end result of the accident. So if we rate you, if you got a preventable accident, and what it is you dented a sign. It's a little bit worse than you got a preventable accident and a person was injured as well. So those are some of the things that we do look at case by case. But number 4,
I think you told even the union the number of actual employees that are really even at 2 or 3 is low.
Right. Yeah, they did. They asked for this. They said, James, how many people are at number 3? Meaning the next one they would be recommended for discharge. And it was less than 2 in the company. So. The fortunate thing is we don't have a lot of people getting in preventable accidents, but we still have more collisions than I'd like to see. And the union understands that, and that's one thing we're going to work on together.
So there's no cumulative aspect of it after a year? It resets every year?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it resets every 365 days. It's a rolling period.
The anniversary of the accident.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
So if you have 4 accidents within any 365-day period.
Okay. So
it's not October 1 to September 30th.
Okay. Got it.
Right, and I'm sorry, and I explained that right. Right, and then all 4 of them won't drop off in a year. It is from the date of the accident.
So they drop off as you get past that year point, that 365 days.
I mean, we've seen operators have a bad week or a bad month. If you have an accident drop off, and then you still have 3 on your record, and you get to another one, you're still.
Well, that's better than what I thought, because if you look at somebody who's having 3 accidents every year, I mean that's something that's got to go.
Yeah, that wouldn't happen because of the 365-day period. Okay. It's not a calendar year.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Chair Welch, you had a question?
Yeah, a couple of questions. Do we now have any employees who are at less than $12.50 after this?
Yes, we do. We have, it would be some of our first-year folks, inventory control clerks, I believe.
Could I ask you just to send us an update?
Sure, I can send you an update on that.
Are you talking a dozen or?
Let me clarify that. I don't know if we have any current employees after if this contract is approved by the board, will be making less than $12.50. The starting wages for some of the non-operator, starting or training wages for the non-operator positions may be less than $12.50.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, currently, I believe the majority of folks are over $12.50. I'm sorry, I thought you meant
Well, I would like a list of the
rates.
positions
Absolutely.
that are still under the $12.50.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Did,
These would be for folks coming in and being hired. There are some positions that would be still starting under $12.50.
Okay, that's the list I'd like to see.
Yes, sir.
This might have been what Commissioner Eggers was asking. I'm not sure. Did you ask for like a total cost of this package? Total dollars? And I might have missed that. Did you get that answer?
No, I think that we're going to get that.
It's coming.
We can provide that.
Just the total budget impact of this deal.
Okay.
I think the point was that it's pretty neutral to what the forecast on the budget was,
But it's still out.
but yeah.
The number itself. Okay. And on the absenteeism, it kind of shook me when I heard that some employees aren't making 40 weeks out of the year. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Is it a pervasive problem? Is it just a few individuals, and how are we dealing with that?
Yeah, so there's a number of reasons. One, through our own attendance policy, which when I got a hold of the contract was, 11 occurrences, meaning 11 times during the year if you just called out sick, you were out for any other reason, and it wasn't a planned out. It wasn't, you didn't use your vacation time, your personal time. 11 times in addition to, certainly we have employees that are able to be covered through FMLA, and those are protected days, so they can be out in addition to that. So we do have a handful of employees that kind of tend to teeter, and they use as much as they can, and they're just kind of sitting right there in the bubble. And I think a lot of agencies kind of go through that. So we did try to do some things to tighten it up. We took away an occurrence. We tried to take away 3 occurrences. We ended up settling it, just reducing it by 1, so now you can have 10 occurrences. By occurrence, I mean if you call out sick, and if you're out a day, it's an occurrence. If you're out 5 days, it just only counts as 1 occurrence. So you figure 10 different times during the year as an impact, and we say that's enough, that's excessive. There's also folks that are able to qualify through their physician or ours for family medical leave, and then they're able to be out. And
that's not an occurrence.
It doesn't count as an occurrence.
So we don't provide sick time?
We do.
We do provide sick days?
Yes.
So if they call in and use a sick day, that's an occurrence?
Yes, that's correct.
But we provide sick pay, so we pay them for the day.
Yes, and we also
It still
had,
counts on this clock of 10.
right.
Okay.
In addition to that, the previous contract allowed for 3, Jeff, no pay excuse days.
3.
And then we cut off 2 of those, and now we're at 1 no pay excuse day as well, in addition to the occurrences. So there were things I think that were offered in terms of flexibility for employees to just be out of work for whatever reason. In the last contract year, and the last time the contract was negotiated, I know it was a 1% increase over 3 years, and the union suspects maybe there were some allowances made, and how flexible that was. And we're looking to tighten that up.
This final question, Mr. Chair. Is all that detail that you just talked about in the contract that we have a link to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. And I'm happy to draw on a few more summary points as well.
Okay. Thank you.
James, is the MOU on the attendance control policy in that link?
I don't believe those were included.
Because I think if that would kind of give the detail I think that Commissioner Walsh might be talking about on the, you might
Sure,
want to.
yeah, we can certainly add that as well.
Thank you.
What was that? MOU?
So we have several MOUs, memorandums of understanding, and therefore, for example, how how some of the committees would work, the accident committee would work. We have one for scheduling and routing. The union wants to make sure they're more in the conversation before we implement, new routes. They want to talk about, hey, do we have enough time in the routes? Where's it going? They just want to make sure, and rightly so, they're out there and they make all the turns. They want to have input. One of the MOUs had to do with attendance policy, so that everybody understands that it's tighter and how we were going to apply the now 1 less occurrence that folks were entitled to during the year.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I just want to be respectful. I think Commissioner Eggers has left, and
Yes.
Commissioner Brown is our alternate.
Yeah.
I would just like to say that I think these questions that you're asking are very good and important, but what we're recommending to you, I think, has been a fantastic effort of progress for the organization, and hats off to James Bradford for leading this. I mean, these things we're talking about, attendance, sick pay, and all these things, this is the first time in several rounds of negotiation that we're actually gaining. We're getting maybe not as much as everyone would like, or kind of surprised, oh my gosh, he's going to be out 10 times, but at the negotiating table, the last several go-rounds, we've been giving more opportunities. And so using benchmarking data, using other analysis, we see that maybe we're a little behind the 8 ball on that, and that's an issue for us. And so we're working, and James has done a good job of negotiating this issue. James is a little selling himself short. I mean, he has looked through, he has read every union contract in the state of Florida. And he has copied and pasted different things that he likes into this new agreement from Hart, from Orlando Lynx, etc. it's like an all-star package of clauses that he's gotten into agreement. And it's really good. And the stuff you talked about at the beginning about a collaborative effort, I mean, I think probably everyone says they have a collaborative effort, but James done a really good job of working with the employees to help them understand some of these things and understand what our perspective is about attendance and how it affects overtime and how that actually reduces their pay that we can offer them if just a handful of people are out on FMLA or repeat offenders, that's hurting the group. And James did a really good job of getting them to understand that. So I think this is great. We're going to have Rick Smith is going to be in my video tomorrow, hand in hand, and then hopefully we'll have a big group of employees come to be positive at the board meeting as well.
All right, thank you. Thank you, James. So basically what I'd like to do is move on to the DART contract.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, what?
Are you looking for a motion?
Yes, I am, exactly.
I move for the Finance Committee to recommend approval to the board. Probably should be an action item.
It is an action. It is. Yep.
No, of the choices.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you very much, James. Again, congratulations, great job.
Thank you.
And let's hear from Ross Silvers on the DART contract, and then we'll vacate the room and let you guys get down to business. Okay, Chair Welch.
You're welcome to stay.
Good morning, everyone. In case anyone doesn't know me, my name is Ross Silvers. I'm the mobility manager here at PSTA. As such, I'm the manager over our paratransit contract, which includes the DART service. I'm here to present to you today an informational item about this contract, which is at the end of its 5 years on September 30th. And so we are about to embark on a procurement to re-procure the service for another 3 + 2 more years. So as most of you probably know, the DART service is a door-to-door service for people whose disability prevents them from using our accessible bus system. So it's all people with disabilities, and the average age of our riders in the system is 73. We have over 1,000 trips that we're performing in a given day, peak day on DART. That's a lot of trips we're performing for a lot of folks. By comparison, HART provides about 500 trips a day. And HART does it with more staff and at a higher per trip cost because they operate the program in-house, whereas we contract it out. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about kind of how we do this program now under the current contracts, and then we'll talk about the new procurement process and what it might look like in the future. So in terms of our staffing, I have about 4 staff who with me manage this process, everything from every aspect of the eligibility and application process for who's eligible in the service, to managing all aspects of ADA compliance, monitoring the contractors, doing ride checks, and working with complaints, investigations, and resolutions, and ensuring we're maintaining those quality standards we have in place, processing our billing, everything involved with the administration of it, but not the actual operation of the project. So they're not our vehicles, they're not our drivers, they are, we don't take the reservation calls, we don't schedule or manifest the trips, all that's done by our contractors. So in terms of the history of this project, we were really one of the first in the country, first transit agencies to contract out fully to this extent our ADA paratransit service. Everyone in the country is required to have to do this. If you operate a public bus, then you have to operate a public ADA complementary paratransit service for those who can't use the system. And just in case you're wondering, there's no magical funding source out there. It's federally required, but it's all coming out of our primary revenue stream as it is for all transit agencies. So we're looking at about $6.3 million as we go to procure this. That would make this the largest contract at PSTA. greater than anything else that we have procured for thus far. So it is a lot of money for a really valuable and needed service that we're required to have to provide. About $6.2 million of that is for DART, and a very small portion of that is for transportation disadvantaged door-to-door trips and for East Lake shuttle trips. Okay. Needless to say, we've saved millions of dollars over the 20-plus years we've contracted out this service by not offering it in-house. So it's worked out well for us. So today we have two providers of the service. We have CareRide, who is our wheelchair service provider, and they're using lift equipped vans to provide service to those who cannot get into a sedan or a passenger van, which is operated by our ambulatory provider, which is Yellow Cab. Another distinction is that CareRide uses employee drivers, and Yellow Cab, our ambulatory provider, uses predominantly independent contractors as their drivers. A little different approach, and that's common for the industry. Most taxi drivers are independent contractors around the country. A distinction in how the service is delivered by these contractors. In CareRide, you're most likely to have a ride by yourself if you're a wheelchair passenger. There's not likely to be two wheelchairs on board unless you're both going from the same neighborhood to the same destination. So most of the time, you're the only wheelchair passenger on board. Whereas in Yellow Cab, it's much easier and faster to load and unload passengers, and it's not an issue of what sequence and using the lift and everything else. So oftentimes you are sharing the ride. Most rides on Yellow Cab are shared. They're not nonstop, door to door. It's much more like our regular bus service, which is how this is intended to be. So ADA says you're supposed to make your DART service, your ADA paratransit service, mirror your bus service in terms of the hours it's available, where it goes, the amount of travel time it takes, etc. Okay. So in terms of this graph, we're looking at what our trips are like today. The top line is a total number of trips for DART, about 275,000 a year. It's had a gradual increase, as you can see, but pretty gradual. That's mirroring a national trend related to the aging population. And about 2/3 of people over the age of 65 have some type of disability. As I mentioned, the average age on DART is 73. So with people living longer, then this service will continue to be needed. In terms of the lower lines, you can see how the red line is the wheelchair van rides has significantly increased steadily, and it's actually now become equal or pretty much with our ambulatory trips, which have remained pretty steady. So there's a couple of different reasons for this. I'm going to get into that in just a minute. So let's talk a little bit about each of the two different providers. These are just some different information statistics about them. CareRide is owned by Baycare Health Company, which owns St. Anthony's and Morton Plain Hospital. They get about, we conduct periodic customer satisfaction surveys with our customers. It's one of the many ways that we check the validity and the quality of the service. So in our most recent survey that we conducted, about 90% rated CareRide at the highest level, which is very satisfying. You can see the other statistics here. I just know this information is slightly different from what's in your packet, but that's just to keep updated. I think I've mentioned pretty much everything else except for the fact that it's the average cost per trip on CareRide is just over $30. So for Yellow Cab, it was originally independent Clearwater Yellow Cab was the company. It was owned by a parent company that owned a couple of different taxi companies. And then in 2014, it got bought out by a very large international transportation company called Transdev Veolia. And they actually do operate some other ADA paratransit services across the country. And so they made a number of improvements in systems and things at that time, but it's still basically operating as a taxi cab company with some additional supports. They have about a 49% of their customers in our recent survey rated them as very satisfied. But about another 30%, I think it was 29, actually rated them as somewhat satisfied. So of the positive ratings, it's still up there around 80%. And on-time performance for them, they always exceed our 95% on-time minimum. And so only about 5% of trips are late. To give you a comparison and put in some perspective, I was talking a couple months ago, I was at a conference, and someone from one of these national paratransit provider contractors came up to me and was talking about their service. And I said, oh, yeah, that's great. What's your on-time performance that you have in Florida? They said very proudly, 92%. I said, that's great. Thank you for telling me. So it's, so we're doing 95, we're doing pretty well. Although, of course, we always look to be better. If you're one of those whose trip is late, it's not much fun to have to wait longer. And just, late means your on-time window is 30 minutes. If you have a 2 o'clock pickup, your trip is late at 2:30, and it's what we call very late if it's coming at 3 o'clock or afterwards, just to give you some perspective. Okay? And their average cost per trip is actually under $10 a ride, which you're not going to beat anywhere.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question on the last slide?
Yeah, sure.
So, Ross, are you saying that second to the last bullet, the 489 trips is the 5%?
That's within the 5%. That's for a whole month. So Yellow Cab is doing anywhere from, on a weekday, 550 to 700 trips in a day. So out of a whole month, 489 were in that very late category.
So that would be the 5%.
That would be within the 5%. It's not the total of the 5%, but because there are also trips that are 0 to 30 minutes late.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So now we're going to look at our costs. So we already discussed kind of what the cost per trip is. Some reasons why the wheelchair trips are more expensive. This is, of course, nationally, not just here. The vehicles are much more expensive to purchase. They're lift-equipped vans and with securement devices, et cetera. So it's a whole different category of vehicle than what's being operated for ambulatory service. The drivers have to go through additional training and additional certifications to become a driver. So it's more expensive on that end. And as I mentioned before, it takes longer to load and unload a wheelchair passenger, and that impacts the efficiency of the service and thus the cost in the end to provide that service. But as I said, both are quite competitive. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about the new process, the procurement we're entering into now. We've gone through months of preparation, almost a year, where we first started meeting with Luema and the purchasing staff. They've been meeting with our legal staff and reviewing different things. We've gone through we've been collecting RFPs for this type of service from around the country for the past year and reviewing those for best practices. So lots going on. In terms of our timeline, you can see that here. So we're looking at coming back to you all on the board, wrapping this up over the summer, looking for full board approval in July, with the service starting in October. One expectation for those of you who may have been here before is that we'll have lots of different companies, a very healthy competitive procurement process, national companies, local companies. There's going to be lots of interest from our customers who are very reliant upon this service, as you all know, and very interested in making sure that that's a contract that they feel comfortable with. So that will all be happening, so just to give you a heads up. Of course, I know you all have heard from every other procurement we go through about the cone of silence, and once we send this out until the time it's ended, if someone wants to talk to you about a certain contract, or just refer them to Luema and the purchasing department. So we're looking at doing this time with, this is for our next slide, one RFP, and that RFP is, instead of right now, we have 2 different RFPs that were submitted. So ambulatory wheelchair will be together, but we're going to have the flexibility to contract this out in a variety of ways that can work best for us and for our customers. So we may end up with one contractor performing all the services or multiple contractors to perform the services. It's whatever's going to be most efficient for us and best for our customers. Really, the overall goal is to ensure that we're striving to have a balance between that cost efficiency and cost effectiveness of the service with providing very safe, very reliable service, building in improvements upon how it is today, and looking at building in things that are happening across the country within the past 5 years. We're really having a quality assurance program as a part of that, where we're having kind of 2 levels that we're looking for folks to meet as contractors. Today we just have these minimum standards that they have to meet, where now we're going to have minimum requirements, and we're going to have a higher level of performance standard that we're looking for them to reach. and we're going to offer financial incentives for them for when they reach those higher standards, and also, offering a way that they can, if they have a period in which they don't meet those higher standards, and they incur those penalties, where they can earn back some of those lost penalties through consistent improved performance. So it's a little more robust of an approach that we're trying to take here to make this work best for everyone. So in terms of how we approach this and the cost effectiveness of the service, one piece that we're evaluating them on is going to be on the innovative approaches that they're going to suggest on how we can save money and still provide excellent quality service to our customers. That's part of the process. And then, separate from all this, not part of this procurement whatsoever, is kind of the idea of being able to take the model that we've been using for Direct Connect, which MBTA up in Boston, they've got a similar idea of how to use it for ADA paratransit passengers. It would again be totally separate from this procurement. It would give those passengers an alternative with some benefits to them for using it that would be less expensive for us. So it's just an exploratory process, but that's kind of where that stands. Brent, did you want to say anything more about that from your trip to DC?
Well, yeah. Thank you, Ross. Commissioner Rice and I and Commissioner Long went to Washington, D.C. over the last couple of days, and during the trip to D.C., PSTA was really the talk of the conference, and we got to be invited to this announcement of a new report that was developed by Uber and Lyft and public transportation that did some surveys that essentially showed that Uber and Lyft can be very complementary to mass transit, and not necessarily taking away from mass transit. And the users of these shared ride services that are coming online are actually have a higher propensity to use public transit as well. And we locally know that if you have been to a track committee member and talked to our riders or our committee, they're using Uber and Lyft and the bus, all the time. And we were the only transit system that got to participate in this media and event, and because we are the only system in the country that has implemented a partnership with Uber. And the panel was the head of APTA, a guy, the head of policy for Uber, and the head policy for Lyft. And she was, the woman from Lyft was like, "You guys are getting too much credit with Uber. Well, why aren't we doing a deal with Lyft?" And I said, "Well, you got to call me, and we'll do a deal." The next step in that great partnership, and I think we can be a leader since we already have this relationship with Uber, is on paratransit. That seemed to be like the holy grail that a lot of people in the room were talking about, because as Ross has described, we're looking for this next RFP to have a level of upgrade in quality compared to our current paratransit work. That doesn't mean that we have not worked very hard with Yellow Cab to substantially increase the quality of service that they're providing. But as you saw, $30 on Care Ride, no complaints. $10 a ride on Yellow Cab. It is a matter of you get what you pay for. And we're looking to put incentives and other provisions in this RFP that we're likely to see increased costs in this procurement than we did before, in exchange for higher quality. So one idea that we are exploring is something that sort of Boston is looking at. Is there other ways that we can reduce the demand? We can have higher quality trips, but maybe reduce the total demand on our paratransit contractors that we're paying $20 a ride on, with other ways, like Uber or Lyft for those who can use that. If we could subsidize for paratransit customers a $10 Uber ride, and therefore we don't have to subsidize them at $20 for the contracted ride, we save money. And maybe that money can then be used to have a higher quality service. That's the idea. And I think we're in a position to try to do that. What Boston has done, they have a pilot, not with Uber, with some cab companies up in Boston, where they have worked out a deal. It's kind of an interesting banking thing. They have given their paratransit customers, in our case DART, customers, a Bank of America debit card, and a group of them. And then they have offered them and said, for every dollar that they spend on that Bank of America card with a qualifying cab company in Boston, the MBTA will add, I think, $10 to the Bank of America card as an incentive for them to be riding on these cheaper cabs than in their case, $50 a trip.
Every dollar you get 10 back?
Yeah.
There's
You
a
get it
limit.
on this card.
There's a limit.
It's their cost structure is totally different than ours. Their cost per trip on a paratransit is over $50 a trip. And so they're giving these folks $10, because it's saving them so much money.
If you don't take a $50 trip,
And you take a cab
you
instead.
get a $10 coupon.
Yeah. Anyway, that's their model. We're trying to get in touch with them and understand it. We've been talking with Uber, and they're talking to us about different options. But this is a way. Again, it's the whole concept of having fewer DART rides, having them ride some other form that's less costly if they can. And then that way we can take those resources that we have and invest in higher quality service for people that have no other option.
I'm a little confused. If people are in wheelchairs and have to have the DART system, how could they then, as a substitute, use a cab?
They likely cannot.
Yeah. Okay.
But as Ross described, we have about 50% of our customers 50% are using taxi cabs that are not wheelchair accessible.
I think that if you put in your mind the people that we're contracting with is Park, U-Park,
Yep.
Area Agency on the Aging, Maple Leaf Senior Services, the veterans, the unemployment, I can't think of what their name is, yes, and James Outfit, We Care,
Oh, yeah, they
Daystar.
start.
So a lot of those people that are using the DART resources could be, I mean, we can't pack a wheelchair, but we can take crutches, we can take all kinds of other
Okay, I understand that.
mobility devices.
Why aren't they using the cabs now, is my question. If they can use a cab, then why don't they use a cab now instead of the...
They are.
Okay.
But we'd like to see more.
It's a matter of looking to the future. The future contractor may not look like our contractors of today.
Okay.
So throughout this presentation, you've seen photos of vehicles that look like a North County connector. They're larger, kind of airport shuttle bus type looking vehicles. They can accommodate a couple wheelchairs, and they can accommodate ambulatory passengers. One thing you may have noticed from the presentation was that Care Ride, it's all one person going nonstop from the origin to the destination mostly. And Yellow Cab, the reason has 4 people packed into a cab to make it efficient and get you all going in the same direction. So if you have a larger vehicle, it allows you to combine that. So you can take a wheelchair passenger and some ambulatory passengers all going the same way, and it's more efficient. So in that kind of a scenario, to be able to offer someone who's ambulatory, hey, do you want to get there faster and not have to stop for 3 or 4 people on the way? Do you want to be able to get a same-day trip instead of having to reserve at 5 p.m. the day before? Here's an option for you. Use our Direct Connect, our DART Connect, whatever it's going to be called, for our same-day service, and we'll give you up to $10 off your same-day trip, because we have to subsidize that larger bus vehicle for you at a cost of $15 or $20 or $25 for the trip. So that's the principle on how it works.
Okay. All right. Yes. Go ahead, please.
Where does the Medicaid compensation fit into all this?
Great question. So Medicaid is quite separate What they did is about to 2014, I want to say, when Medicaid went under managed care. And so when they did that, all the transportation for Medicaid also went under managed care. So now you have every one of the 4 managed care companies that services Medicaid in this county contracts with a transportation broker. And then those brokers contract with providers. So it's all kind of brokered out in that system. So we're not involved directly with the provision of those trips. We are involved with the provision of trips via bus pass. So we work with all those brokers on selling them bus passes for those folks who can use the bus. So and to get to the next phase of that, if someone's on Medicaid and they're entitled to door-to-door service, they can get it for free through Medicaid to their Medicaid compensable appointments. So obviously, since DART costs $450, if someone's eligible for that, we know on Medicaid they're going to be low income. And so we tell people about that service being available, but most of them who are eligible already know about it and use it when they can because it's free.
Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you. On the committee, the Transportation Disadvantaged Committee, Medicaid has a seat and sits there and explains what's coming, how to use it, so that all the providers are a part of the equation. FDOT sits there with us. Ross, you can think of them better than I can.
Lots of agencies, and so it is very helpful to have them in the room to answer questions about all those different providers you mentioned before who are under the TD program. So that's a great resource. Thank you.
So they're all sitting there working together.
Okay.
Because the less it costs them, the more trips they can do. And of course, all of the agencies that I talked about are, they have 10 more trips a day they could certainly appreciate having the money to do. And it's not that we have reached everyone we could or should. It's that we're trying to do the best with what we have, and each agency is doing that also.
CARE would have to be really good about letting us know, hey, so-and-so just became Medicaid eligible, so, we gave them all the information, got them hooked up so they could switch their trips from DART to Medicaid and start using it for free. So they're a great partner for that.
In the interest of not taking all Commissioner Welch's time, if we can, this is informational only, so I'd like to cut this off if we can.
I think the takeaway from this, I'm hoping you will receive, is this is a very big it's our biggest contract. I think Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Welch were here before 2011. Remember the packed room? These riders all of our riders are loyal and love us, of course, but these love us, and they need this service. They have nothing else. That July 27th meeting will likely have some folks there very interested in how this works out, and so we're very cognizant of that. We're trying to look in many different ways at how to improve the quality and make sure that we're prepared to respond to these folks when this contract is up.
Well, it is a lifeline for a lot of folks.
It is.
I've used it in my family. I'm sure other folks have used it. I think Julie use it with their fathers.
If anyone has a follow-up question, just let me know. I'm happy to answer it.
Ross, thanks for doing a great job on this. This is a tremendous amount of work, I know, and coordination and everything like that. So we very much appreciate all the information and keeping us up to speed on what's going on.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that, I will adjourn the portion of the committee that belongs to us, and I'll turn it back over to Commissioner Welch, and we'll get you guys out of here hopefully within a reasonable amount of time.
Y'all are welcome to stay.
We did.
Don't feel like you have to run off. Exciting stuff. We'll keep cranking along. So we resume at agenda item number 3, public comment. We have one card from Mr. Phil Compton. Okay, you get it. Phil?
Hey, good morning. Phil Compton, Sierra Club Healthier Campaign. Wanted to thank, first of all, Darden Rice for representing Sierra Club representing PSTA next week at our event at Sierra Club. I wanted to invite you all to come to that. It's a kickoff of Sierra Club's Suncoast Group's Ready for 100 campaign, which is a campaign where this year the Suncoast Group volunteers, our members, will be working with people in the community in St. Petersburg to identify means by which we can move in a manner consistent with the Paris Accords a few months ago to make a commitment to 100% moving away from fossil fuels. I want you to please feel like you can come to that. Please come if you can, 9 o'clock, with our Sierra Club's National Executive Director, Michael Brune, coming for our Florida visit. And it's at our office at 1990 Central Avenue, 20th and Central. And of course, transportation and our use of oil, which is where most oil goes to, is part of this equation. We think that PSTA has a role to play in moving St. Petersburg and Pinellas County and Florida beyond our dependence on oil. 7 years ago, the American Petroleum Institute was coming around and telling us all that we needed to drill for oil off our beaches and put our $6 billion tourism and fishing economy at risk. And we didn't have an answer for them other than, well, no, we don't think we need to do that. Today we have technology in transportation that doesn't use oil, and we can tell them that it's unnecessary. Yesterday, the president changed his mind on drilling off the coast of Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and that is due in large part to the fact that we don't need the oil with the oil reserves that we have nationally. This technology is advancing very quickly. You know, the good news is that we need to adopt all this technology to move away from oil and coal and natural gas as fast as we can. Good news is that it's improving. It's getting more efficient, less costly, and more effective every day, every year. And Sierra Club just learned recently from Proterra, for instance, that you've had an interest in, that their buses will be changing. They will be getting more efficient. They're working with engineers that came over to them from Tesla. And so they'll have a bus coming out in a few months that will go 50% further than the one that you would have bought from them last year. That's going to change the equation for you in considering that option in terms of the routes that you might use to put it on, the range that it will have, and the cost overall, how you charge those buses. It's something that's greatly in flux. Proterra is going to be appearing, having their bus at a demonstration at the Earth Day event in St. Petersburg on Saturday, April 23rd at Williams Park, which is now, of course, thanks to your efforts, a park that is now more open to the public. And thanks to the fact that the city of St. Petersburg is retaining the concrete barrier along 4th Street North, we'll be able to use that space, that lane, for the electric bus and for electric passenger vehicles that will be on display. So come that day. I know that they're also going to be at the Kennedy Space Center Earth Day event the day before on Friday the 22nd. Because Kennedy Space Center, like a lot of theme parks, are looking at electric buses now. And there's a possibility that there could be a demonstration here at PSTA that would coincide with your meetings on Wednesday the 20th. So I know, yes?
That was your 3 minutes.
Okay.
I appreciate all the info. If you want to wrap it up quickly, any other thoughts in your head there?
Thank you. I hope to see you next Tuesday the 22nd.
Yeah.
Thank you. The date for the 100, Ready for 100 is
That's
what date?
The 22nd.
March 22nd?
Yes, March 22nd, Tuesday,
Thank you.
9 a.m. till 11 p.m. at our office at 1990 Central.
To 11 p.m.?
Pardon me? Till 11 p.m., yes. 9 to 11 a.m.
A.m.
Did I say? That will be a long day, yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to our action items. 4A, which is the approval of our February 17th meeting minutes. Any corrections?
Move approval.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes barely. We'll move on to information items and our 2017 key budget assumptions. Brad or Debbie?
Yes, I want to introduce Debbie, and she'll highlight the handout that you have at your place, I hope, the blue one.
Does everyone have one of these?
Is that the same as what was in the other one?
Has it been updated or
I have 3 of them
what we
here.
got earlier?
Nope, it should be what you guys shared had them. Today is going to be the kickoff to our budget season, the formal kickoff that never really ends for those of us who work with it. And we'll be going through a couple different things over the next couple months, so it's a very long, thoughtful process. Today we'll be talking about the key budget assumptions. Next month we'll be talking about the capital budget, followed by personnel, and then coming forward with you to, in June, with a draft budget for further consideration over the summer months, along with the ad valorem that we vote on in July, with the final approval in September. This is actually the second year, fiscal year 2017, of our Path Forward plan. So we've already put a lot of thought into it last year, and our goal in every budget year for fiscal 17 is to provide a balanced budget, both operating and capital. And we will be preparing the budget by taking a look at where we are today, and then looking forward at what's changing, what are historical trends, what will be different, and the key assumptions we play a part in that. Having a multi-year budget, which is what we will be presenting to you, not just fiscal 17, but going out to 2021, will give us an idea of how our finances look going forward. So what is the sustainability of our PSTA funds that we have available to us? What the impact of today's decisions are, and it also provides a very holistic financial picture of PSTA once we put that together. Taking a look at revenue assumptions, I'm going to go through a few key highlights today. For revenues, we have ad valorem tax, our passenger fare revenues, and operating assistance that we get from both the federal, state, and local sources. The ad valorem tax is currently at the 0.7305. What we've done is we've taken a look at what the county has projected over the next 5 years, and have put that in and updated our assumptions. And we still have, based on the 5-year plan we looked at last year, starting in 19, we still have some operating deficits out there. So we are going to be looking through the budget process of finding ways to save money, raise revenues. One possibility may be looking again at ad valorem tax, and that would be assuming that we don't see a large increase in what we're receiving today. The impact on that, similar to last year, is about $1 million if we were to raise it to the cap. Our passenger fares are currently at $2.25. Now, when we went through the American Bus benchmarking presentation, we learned we're at the high end of our peers. So while we have, and if you remember the Ernst & Young plan, we had looked at doing a fare increase every 3 years. The next time would be in 2019. I think it's time to let the rest of the nation catch up to us. We know how difficult this was on our passengers. So let's start thinking outside the box on what else we can do besides this.
Can I ask you one question?
Sure.
And I'll try not to ask a bunch. I know this is just the first time for you. But on the 450 for the DART that we just looked at, is that going to increase under the new, it'll stay at 450 as well?
No, our costs may change. And
But the 450 that the
our cost of
client
PSTA
pays.
may change with the new procurement, but the amount that we're charging the passengers will not.
And is that dictated, or is that just our policy?
That is the fares that we passed last year.
There is a federal requirement that your ADA fare transit fares cannot be any more than 2 times
So
your
that's why
base
it's
fare.
4, okay. So that's the linkage.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
So on operating assistance, we get money from the FTA, about $5.5 million that we put towards operations. We get more than that in total, more like $12.5 million, I think, Pam. And the rest we put towards capital. As you may recall, what we want to do is lessen our dependence on those funds to put towards operations, because we have a need for buses. So what we're going to do is hold that $5.5 million steady in the plan going forward, regardless of how much more money the federal government may give us. And then we also get operating assistance from the state in the form of block grants, PD money, which I know you're working very hard on, trying to get more money for us, and reimbursements and grants for regional routes like the 100X, 300X, and in the future, the 60X. And then on local assistance, we do get $80,000 from the MPO. That has remained flat for a number of years now, but it's something that we do get. And on the expenditure assumptions, our expenses, the largest is personnel and our salaries and fringes, which we just talked about, and thanks to James and his team. We know that over the next 3 years, we are within budget. You asked the question, Commissioner Welch. We'll get you the exact data. We are just shy of 0.4% off of our 3-year budget.
You're losing it, you're not. You're
Savings,
slipping.
savings of about $260,000.
Outstanding.
That was an excellent job on James and the team part and on the union. We talk about cultural changes and how things are. Where I came from, I had 13 unions, and these were amazing sessions. I didn't sit in on all of them, but the ones I sat in it was very collaborative. They recognized that we have overtime issues, attendance issues, and then let's find ways to make this better. And that, I think, goes a lot to what Brad and James and the culture that we've set here. So it's one
Certainly come a long
organization.
way, definitely.
One organization, one mission, one voice. So that's excellent. So we have, and now we'll be following the 3.5% that we know, and we've now contained some of our largest costs over the next 3 years. The next driver on things are health insurance and pension. And health insurance, last year we went to a minimum premium concept, which is where we're partially self-insured. We're going to be taking a close look at that. Again, a lot of members of the team on the union side said, how can we help? Are there different ways of looking at things such as pharmacy, which is the cost that's going up the most?
One issue there, just that I'm a little bit nervous about is you heard that the union deal includes this $300 bank that is going to be drawn down and pay the employee's portion of their health insurance. So for about a year, they're going to be drawing down that $300, and it's going to be free. They're going to say, oh, great, the health insurance is free. And then if the health insurance goes up on October 1 again, they're going to be like, when it shows up again and their $300 is exhausted, then they're going to be like, oh my gosh.
What happened to
They're going to call
be
James.
paying another $7.10 or something?
They're going to be in James's office saying, what's this deal?
Because they have been participating now for several years in the cost increases. So they do have a vested interest in doing better.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So on our supply side, and this is where, and Henry's in the room here, we want to extend the life of our buses out to 15 years. And we have included an increase in next year's budget to try to account for some of the additional parts and things that we'll need to be able to do that. And then with just a little increase above and beyond that every year for basically sort of twice the CPI. And before I get to questions, one of the things I didn't put up here that you heard about earlier today for those who are here for Finance Committee meeting is that we're doing things differently here at PSTA. Brad challenged us last year, the board challenged us last year to save money. And we sat as staff around this room and came up with a laundry list of ideas. We've been really pushing forward on those ideas. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that this is National Procurement Month. And we've got Luna Crowdy here, who's our Director of Procurement. And as she has partnered up with all of us who buy things every day, we have saved, we suggested last year with our savings we could come up for this fiscal year about $100,000. Well, we are probably targeting more between $650,000 and $700,000 that we're saving this year alone.
Outstanding.
And when we talk about supplies per Henry, I see Brad's face scrunched up when I said we're increasing what we're doing next year. What we're going to be doing is buying supplies, the inventory supplies differently. We're going to be consolidating so much more of them that we feel we'll easily save about 10% of the cost, which will cover that increase that I'm looking for in supply line.
are we talking about those efficiencies? And, I mean, we need to be telling the
That's what I'm
public.
telling you, I'm excited. It's procurement
I mean,
month,
yeah.
it's procurement month every month.
Maybe we can hit some social media or something. I mean, just
Yeah.
give us a write-up on it. We need to be talking about that. That's
It's
huge.
just absolutely amazing what we can do when we start collaborating together. And as I said, we're doing this as an organization. The excitement that people have to be able to report what they're doing is absolutely amazing.
Can you capsulize that 650 and
Yeah,
140
I
characters?
give Brad reports every quarter that I make Blue MQ.
Those are more than 140 characters. Though. We need something that we can put out there.
National Procurement Month, is that what it's called?
Yes.
And then we
Hashtag
save 650, and we save 650K.
And it's also National CGFM Launch for Certified Government Financial Managers, which Michael and I are part of, but I'm not sure.
That
if
is a
it's
trending
anything-
worldwide topic, I'm sure.
Hashtag that one.
Well,
So,
excellent.
are there any questions that you would have? And
Outstanding, and thank you so much for the assumptions. Any questions from the committee? Yes, ma'am.
Just one.
Sure.
And I think I'm going to move this way.
I'll always look at that, you know that.
We have dedicated part of our CRA budget to homeless leadership. And I've always wondered why we're not taking, the transportation disadvantaged is absolutely, unequivocally, no doubt, the low income. And why we haven't figured out how to leverage that into all the different CRA grants. I mean, it's something that we use. Every city that has a CRA grant has already proved we have a need for that money. Something just to think about.
I'd love to see a proposal. I mean, it's really a new day for CRAs in the county, and if you can show a link to poverty or overall community or economic development.
About blight.
Real blight, yeah.
Real blight.
Exactly.
Okay, so my grants manager furiously writing this down, so that's good.
We can get that just a concept
Yeah.
right now.
I think we can
I
all
heard-
agree. I think that every city, we have 15 cities, and most of them have CRA grants, that they might be able to.
Yesterday in Washington, D.C., my phone was going crazy with news of good news and bad news. The good news was that the governor's veto list did not include the veto of the transportation disadvantaged study that we fought for.
Thank goodness.
That's the good news. So we're going to get a study. Maybe the less so optimistic news was from Lisa Bacot, the executive director of the Florida Public Transit Association, which was sort of she was in DC, and she was filling me in on the Tallahassee deal that we're going to have to work really hard to get that study to be meaningful, because there is a really strong push to have transportation disadvantage funds only go to rural counties. So.
I think that the figures.
But the opportunity is really there, and the
I think-
study's going to be done, so I think it's a great opportunity to take advantage of.
I think the figures should be able to tell the story for Lisa. We lead the
She's
state.
on board. She's
100%. We lead the state in taking care of
Yeah.
those disadvantaged persons. And we have the most, and we do the most. Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
While Debbie's still standing up, and I just have to say, for the record and publicly, I'm completely remiss in not thanking Debbie and the finance team during my presentation. I apologize. But they were instrumental, Mike Hansen and Nelson and her finance team. I wouldn't be able to know where I could go, what my limits were in the negotiation. So I'm sorry about that. You know, it's.
No, we're quiet in the background.
I had to get that in.
Stated and on the record.
Thank you.
Anything else for Debbie? All right, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'll next move on to our projects and partner updates. Heather?
Last month, Cassandra gave you a brief update on many of the different projects that the planning department's working on, and you all indicated an interest in that being a recurring item. So I did put together a summary of just some highlights from the last month, and I'll touch on a few of those. One, we continue to work with the public and the city of St. Pete to improve the downtown system redesign to include more bus stops. So we've got 14 new bus stops coming that are going to be placed soon in downtown St. Pete, and then we are working on an additional 19 with city staff and with our safety and security team. So that should make all the riders happy. In terms of one other thing on here is Chris Cochran of the planning staff has met with the North Pinellas Cultural Alliance, and they are very interested in putting out more shelters, and specifically art shelters.
So that's the Arts Alliance?
Yes.
Okay.
And so they call themselves a cultural alliance.
I know.
But
They're sprouting up every day.
Yes. Oh, okay.
About this yesterday.
And I guess they have some funding that they would like to participate in our shelter match program. And so that would be where we would, places we wouldn't normally put a shelter because they don't have the super high ridership that we're focused on for our new shelters. The local jurisdiction, or in this case this group, could contribute funds, matching funds, and we would pay part of the cost and they would pay the additional cost. And so we are working on finalizing policies for that program and an agreement that we can bring back to that group in April. We also had our first of what we hope to be ongoing monthly coordination meetings with the MPO, and Whit Blayton is here today. And these meetings are allowing us to coordinate our agendas for both the MPO, PPC meetings, and PSTA meetings, to talk about studies that we're partnering on. And that includes things like State Road 60, looking at the beach access discussion and perhaps extending that discussion to include the entire State Road 60 corridor, transfer area analysis, our, I wouldn't say our, but the Tri-County Regional Premium Transit Study that HART is leading, and that the MPO is participating in, and then of course the MPO's prioritization process, which we are very interested in. Other items that are late breaking, that didn't make this list, but that I did want to update you on. We have been working with Pinellas Park staff, and we've provided a couple proposals for possible replacement to the 444, and so some kind of new service in the Pinellas Park area that would be a better service for the people in that area. And then also we are working with our consultant to develop a scope for our downtown St. Pete circulation study, and that is to parallel the Central Avenue BRT planning effort, because we know that we need to look at, there's multiple circulation services in downtown and how to maybe make those work better together from a system perspective. Another item on here includes US 19, and I did want to provide Whit the opportunity to update you all on progress that's been made on that discussion.
Whit.
Thank you, Whit, for coming.
Sure.
Fill us in.
I'll update you on a few things and elaborate on that. In regards to US 19, we had a meeting with the Florida Department of Transportation back in mid-February to outline what we're trying to accomplish. And I think there's some misunderstanding sometimes with FDOT when we talk about land use and transportation in the US 19 corridor, because Pasco County has been talking about creating a multi-way boulevard or a complete street treatment for US 19. We haven't really had that conversation, and every time I talk about improving accessibility and coming up with a vision for the US 19 corridors so transportation and land use are linked, I get pushback saying, well, we're not going to do a complete street. And, I think it's just breaking down some of the barriers that we have when we talk to different agencies about how we filter communication. So it was a very productive meeting. They asked me to follow up with a letter, and the letter I sent requested two things. One, that we asked the Department of Transportation to defer the design work on the interchanges north of Tampa Road. Those are the ones at Klosterman, Alderman, and Tarpon Avenue, where we've had significant community pushback on those interchanges, particularly in Tarpon Springs. And it's $800 million of transportation investments we're just not sure are warranted given the demand for travel in that corridor. And you have Lake Tarpon there, which I think limits some of the east-west possibility in that area. So we'll see if they do that. We actually asked them to swap the Tampa Road design project, which is in FY17, with those other interchanges, which are in FY16. So hopefully they'll do that. And that'll give us a year to work with Pinellas County Planning Department on a study to evaluate land uses in the US 19 corridor so that we can come up with a cohesive land use transportation strategy in that area. The other request was that we do a value engineering study, one that's open and transparent, where we're a participant in that study to look at the need for those interchanges going forward. And DOT does those value engineering types of studies all the time, and we think it's overdue since the data driving these interchanges largely come from the 1988 PD&E study. So it needs to be updated.
Yes.
Are you on MPO?
No.
So two of us aren't on MPO. I know you probably talked about this for hours with the MPO and Commissioner Seal.
We had some good discussions with Commissioner Seal.
Does this change the concept of US 19 being a north-south expressway?
I think it only changes where that termination happens. And if you look at the corridor, Tampa Road is a main feeder route into Hillsborough County. But that's about it. And as you go further north, it just, in our minds, doesn't make sense that you keep that partially controlled expressway continuing, especially when Pasco County has taken out of their long-range transportation plan any high-capacity improvements.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah. So where's that transition occur is our question, and I don't know that there's been a lot of thought given that because it's always been we're going to take it to the end of the county line, which makes sense when you're thinking 2040 long-term planning, but now that they're moving into design, I think we really need to have a good conversation about how that transitions back to an at-grade facility and what that means for economic development in that corridor, because it's clearly had an impact on the businesses to the south.
But it is a functional expressway, say from mid-county south.
Oh, yeah.
The improvement is tangible. You can go through there compared to 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions for Wade?
I do.
Yes.
Where are we on having the buses being able to access 19 and having their own lane, which we talked about quite some time ago?
That's where this vision for the US 19 corridor comes into play. And so in addition to working with county planning department staff, we'll be working with the local governments and PSTA to develop a concept of operations for that type of service and then evaluate it and see how it can work. And that's critical to the design. And that's why we've asked DOT to hold off on the design, because if they go into a design phase and they get beyond 30% plans and we come back to them and say, oh, can you tweak and adjust this, it gets very difficult to do that.
Okay, and none of that hooks up with Tampa. I had to go to Orlando this past weekend, downtown Orlando. What used to take me an hour took me 2.5 or more hours.
Takes me 4 every Friday afternoon.
And there's no lane for a bus. There's no real way to get back and forth without having 5 lanes jammed and stopped. Our east-west is just a mess.
So my concept for the US 19 vision is that we will have a premium transit option in the US 19 corridor that will anticipate future east-west connections over to the Bay, whether that's the Howard Franklin corridor. I doubt it's going to be Courtney Campbell, but whatever we decide to get across the Bay, it could be 580, which is going through Oldsmar, and there's an option there to tie in with maybe the CSX tracks or some other type of option. And then eventually, I think long-term, we have to look at if high-speed rail becomes a reality from Miami-Dade to Orlando, the next leg of that logically brings it over to the Tampa area. And we need to be prepared in Pinellas County to be ready to receive that in our planning. And I think US 19 is the logical connecting point for that to happen.
Thank you.
So a lot of things I'm a big believer in go big or go home, and so we really need to have a bold vision for what we're trying to accomplish, and then work with DOT to see how we can integrate it into their design activities.
Great.
So it's
Chair Rice.
And I just wanted to comment and thank and congratulate Mr. Blanton for this work, and just I think that it's almost palpable the new energy and strategic thinking and direction that's coming from NPO. And that was an important letter that was sent to FDOT. They are our partners, and so this is a chance for us to kind of hit the pause button and make sure that they're working with us and listening to us together as we go forward. And we haven't really done that in a while, if ever.
Great. And Mr. Chairman, if I could just add
Sure.
one thing real quick to augment what Heather said. The meeting that we had, our first coordination meeting, also had FDOT on the phone. And I think that was as much of a breakthrough as anything, because we worked pretty well together. But getting the department in on that conversation, which was really just, what are you working on? What are we working on? And how can we work together? And it was a good dialogue. And they've pledged to be there in person at every meeting that we schedule if they can. And that was just one where they had an all-day training session, so they had to call in. And then I'm today going to be submitting to Heather and Cassandra a scope of work for the transfer area analysis, where we're going to work in partnership to look at what I'm calling opportunity sites or opportunity areas to really look at our transfer points, Indian Rock Shopping Center, Park Square Mall, you know the ones around Pinellas County, and to see how we can look at those from, are the sites ready and supporting mixed-use redevelopment? And if they're not, do we need to be there? Can we relocate and move to a place where we're going to have the development around it that will generate ridership? And then secondly, we have a lot of access to safety funds. We have a lot of access to transportation alternative funds. And if we can do this study and identify some deficiencies or some access improvements or safety improvements that are needed, it'll open up the door, I think, to some funding opportunities to make those hubs, true hubs for multimodal accessibility, bringing in trails, bringing in sidewalk connections, and then working with the local governments to ensure that their parking lot design, for instance, is conducive to pedestrian access, because you got to get to the door. It's one thing to get off the bus, but you got to get to the door.
It's the Tyrone Mall.
Yeah, and the harder that is, the less people want to ride the bus.
Right.
Oh, yeah, well, it's all over the county.
Yeah, but that's the one that sticks out in my mind when I'm past.
Tyrone's a bad one.
Yeah. Well, that's great collaboration. I wanted to ask you mentioned the high-speed rail, and, we may have some improved opportunities for that. As the private rail connects to Orlando from Miami, the next logical piece is Orlando to Tampa. The multimodal centers in West Shore, what's the status of those? Are they funded or just planned?
My understanding of the West Shore is that the department has made a purchase of the property, but they have not proceeded with demolition or construction or anything like that. That's
Charlie
subsequent
Steakhouse
funding. Yeah.
Property.
So
I
they,
remember the Steakhouse.
The key is just to get it and to reserve that right of way.
Wasn't there a second one though?
There might have been.
In downtown, I think.
Yeah, in downtown for sure.
Downtown, Nottingham.
Yeah. I thought there were two back when we were looking at this before. The one in West Shore, and I thought there was one.
I'm more familiar with one in West Shore. I know there is one in downtown. I don't know the status of it.
Okay.
The issue for us is there is no similar type of hub in Pinellas County that's been identified. So what we want to do with our gateway mid-county emphasis area is to really make sure we can hone in on that and preserve that site and ensure that as it gets developed, it's also developed in a mixed-use complementary way that supports access by all modes.
And is the approach is that would be state funded?
The approach would be that would be a state-funded intermodal center. Yes.
Okay. I'm just thinking as we're gearing up for the next penny, there's no local component for the Hillsborough, for the West Shore?
I don't believe there's a local component.
That works.
Yeah. I mean, the state has money for this.
They have not programmed money to build it yet.
Right.
They had the money and they bought the property.
But the money is there for the Howard Franklin support structure.
Yes, for the hardening of the Howard Franklin Bridge, correct. And the premium transit study should define a locally preferred alternative that would move into project development phase.
And that's the Tri-County.
That's the Tri-County premium transit study. Yes.
Okay, correct.
And we're expecting to have a scope of services to review in April.
Great. A lot of progress.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, anything else for Whit or Heather? Any other
I
items?
can't wait to see what you send over to Mills Park. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, I have a marketing concept that Heather has not approved yet, but I believe we should call the new route the Break in honor of retiring planner, Pinellas Park planner Bob Break, who's been helping out.
Yes, we're going to miss Bob.
She's smiling, so that's all we can.
It's all good.
All right, we'll move to item number 7, future meeting subjects. Anything you want to hit there, Brad? Sustainability plan.
Again, as Debbie described, this was round 1, and then you'll see on the subsequent agendas between now and July more components of our budgeting process. We're just sort of kicking off, and then moving toward, as you saw earlier, the DART presentation. So that'll be coming back in December. We had a good executive committee meeting where we started to talk about a workshop that has now been scheduled for May 6th, and putting that together. I think next month's planning meeting, you'll have a draft agenda on how that's shaping out.
So that's already gone out?
The date has been hopefully secured on your calendars. I have that right, Rachel, right? Friday, May 6th? And spending a good amount of time with Chair Rice over the last couple of days to try to have a focus on regionalism and the benefits of working regionally in a ever-moving transportation environment with these new technologies and new plans, changing plans. This may be sort of the theme we're going to hopefully try to work toward.
Awesome.
It's on the calendar.
Not hopefully, will.
We will. Work for it.
If I can add something to that, at the joint meeting that we had, I'm trying to remember the date, was it in January, for the 2 boards? We selected July 29th as our next time to get together, and we're going to be working at a staff level on an agenda for that. But our intent is to bring back to you a couple of options for how we would reform our prioritization process for investments. And we need to go cautiously with that because there's a lot of moving parts. But we are starting in May with our technical coordinating committee to introduce them to our performance-based, outcome-driven planning process. And that will, I think, lay the groundwork. We can get the technical coordinating committee on board. We can then develop a technical recommendation and bring some options to the board. We really like what Metroplan Orlando and Lynx have been doing in that area, where they go to the board and they ask the board each year, how do you want to allocate dollars to different modes? And it's been, if you look back at the history of that, I think I showed it at that joint work session, it's gone from about an 80-20 highway orientation, transit orientation, to something that's about 30-30-30 for the different modes, with bike and ped thrown into the mix too. And you're not going to flip that switch overnight in 1 year. But if you can have this conversation and you can have a process that's legitimate, then I think you can begin building that progress towards doing that. And DOT has told me things like the bus on shoulder pilot program that's been discussed. They're funding the pilot program, but if that's going to become a reality, the MPO will have to prioritize that. And so there's a lot of things that we're going to have to start just getting sharper about in terms of advancing transit projects at the MPO.
And wait, that just remind me, who is the chair of the MPO's technical committee?
It's Jen Rice and Dunedin right now.
Okay.
All right, well, we've had a productive meeting, and we are right on schedule, maybe a minute early. Do we have any other business? Anything else, Brad? Commissioner Knight, I haven't heard from you all day, sir.
Well, that's right.
Yes, sir.
Brad and I are going to go tomorrow down and talk to the folks at St. Pete Beach about trying to get a little bit more money from them. And this kind of came up when we were talking about, there are places where we are not getting any money. I went into the schedule, and I'm looking at Kenneth City. I got St. Pete Beach, they get the trolley coming down, they have the cat coming down, and that takes people all the way down the beach there. You get into Kenneth City, you look at the number of things going through there, we have about 8 or 9 different bus routes running through Kenneth City.
Yes.
54.
And we don't charge them a thing. And so maybe we should maybe we should think about what we could do with them as well.
I think we look at each of them. I just had a great conversation with Mayor Lowe from St. Pete Beach,
Yeah.
and she is committed to asking them to move forward on it,
On the,
on becoming part of PSTA.
oh, good.
Now, it's a referendum, so even if that doesn't pass, she understands the inequity. I was at Passive Grill at the Hurricane Sunday, and I told Brad, I saw two of our regular buses stopping at the stop right by the Hurricane,
Oh, yeah.
and I just thought we had trolleys running out there. So,
No.
No, that's the cat, yeah.
what's the cat?
That's comes over from St. Pete.
Oh, the Central Avenue Trolley.
No,
Regular.
regular
No,
buses.
these are regular.
I was gonna ask.
The gray hybrid buses,
Oh.
gray and green, two of them. I saw them Sunday, so maybe they were replacing a trolley or something, but I saw them Sunday. Anyway, bottom line, they are asking us for a CRA for St. Pete Beach, the
Yeah.
county.
Yeah.
And during that conversation a couple of weeks ago, it just came up, well, in their plan, they had some kind of a transportation facility. It came up that, well, you're not part of PSTA. So, in my personal view,
Yeah.
and several colleagues believe, if we're expanding a premium BRT service, and we've got options of going to a city that's in PSTA or not, you're at a disadvantage. And if you're talking about a multimodal transit facility being in your city, well, you kind of need to be in PSTA because we're a big part of being multimodal. So she said she's going to carry that water back to her commission, and so good luck.
He greased the.
Whoa.
For us.
She gets it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me offer you that I know personally for 60 years, the regular buses have gone to St. Pete Beach and back to downtown St. Petersburg for 60 years, because I used to ride it from Brightwater Boulevard every Saturday to downtown St. Pete, to Williams Park, and home again, every Saturday. Regular bus. And we've never collected any money.
Well, let's try, I'm saying let's try Kansas City. too.
Yeah, Joe Barkley, who is the PSTA board member who represents Kansas City, also has spoken to their city, and we're going to be talking to them as well.
Because they've got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah, the buses on those roads, do not stop.
Are you okay with the agenda for the wage fund?
Yeah, on the Kansas City side, the routes will go all around them.
Yeah.
But there's no bus stops on their side, which is kind of crazy.
Services or employees.
Fort County